Efforts to get the war ended between the United States and Iran have been destroyed by the Israelis, who refuse to stop attacking Lebanon. In fact, Iran's news agency Tasnim said that Iran wants an immediate cessation of Israel's military operations in Gaza and Lebanon. Now, the real sticking point here is Lebanon, which Trump seems pretty ill-informed about, because when he was asked what's going on with Lebanon, here's what he said.
I also asked him about Netanyahu and the Israelis. I asked, it seems to be that the Iranians are saying they're not going to negotiate until Israel stops attacking in Lebanon. Have you talked to Netanyahu about it? I asked the president. He said, this is about 40 minutes ago. He said, no, but I'm going to ask him what's going on with Lebanon. They've been fighting for a long time. Now, since our call, just in the past couple of minutes, we've seen a report on Reuters that crossed the wires a short time ago, suggesting that the president has now called Netanyahu to discuss that. But at the time that he and I spoke, he suggested that in fact, they had not talked yet.
Yeah, I gotta hit Bibi up and ask him, what's going on with Lebanon, man? What's going on with Lebanon? That's the president of the United States, okay? The guy who's shelling out billions of dollars to Israel so they can carry out their slaughter in not just Gaza, but also Lebanon. Okay, so following his call with Netanyahu, Trump posted on Truth Social, I had a very productive call with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, and there will be no troops going to Beirut, and any troops that are on their way have already been turned back. Likewise, through highly placed representatives. I had a very good call with Hezbollah, by the way. Hezbollah denies this, and they agreed that all shooting will stop, that Israel will not attack them, and they will not attack Israel. And then he says President Donald Trump. Okay, great. So Cenk, immediately after he puts out that statement, Netanyahu puts out a statement of his own. What did that statement read?
Tonight, I spoke with President Trump and told him that if Hezbollah does not cease attacking our cities and citizens, Israel will attack terror targets in Beirut. This stance of ours remains unchanged. In parallel, the IDF will continue to operate as planned in southern Lebanon. So he says the plans are unchanged, not, oh, because Hezbollah did this, we're going to do that. He says we are going to continue doing exactly what we were doing, which is invading and taking southern Lebanon. So in other words, that's an open-handed slap to Donald Trump, saying Trump is lying. I'm not going to listen to him. I'm never going to do peace. I'm going to keep attacking the civilians in their capital in Beirut. So your president is weak and impotent, and I run the country.
That's right. That's right. That's a good way of summing it up. And so what are the Israelis actually up to in Lebanon? Is this really about fighting Hezbollah, or is there something else afoot? Well, let me read a direct statement from Itamar Ben-Gvir, right? One of the top politicians, most influential politicians in Israel. He debuted his plans for Beirut. Here's what he said, quote, "We say in all honesty, the suburbs of Beirut need to be flattened." Israelis are really good at that, as we've learned. They need to be flattened. I oppose the previous ceasefire, and today I'm also saying the suburbs must be flattened. The Israeli army is doing its job. What really hurts them in the suburbs, he says, we need to target them, flatten them, and completely destroy them. Again, flatten the suburbs. Hezbollah is in the suburbs. I'm sure there are monsters and boogeymen everywhere to justify your slaughter campaigns and your destruction of civilian infrastructure and residential property. That's why we have to eliminate Hezbollah's presence in the suburbs, right? So I guess Hamas was in every single building imaginable in Gaza where that enclave has been completely flattened, right? But anyway, today Ben-Gvir also told Netanyahu to push back on any demands by President Trump to end the bloodshed in Lebanon like a true terrorist would. And over the weekend, Israel seized Lebanon's Beaufort Castle. There's no Hezbollah there. I should be very clear about that. They sent mandatory evacuation orders to now roughly 20% of Lebanon's population, including in Beirut.
Ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, you'll love this. You'll get a little chuckle out of this, Cenk. France, Germany, and the UK condemned Israel's push further into Lebanon.
Oh, so what, they just taking southern Lebanon's enough?
They're anti-Semites, right? The UK condemned Israel trying to take more land in Lebanon.
How dare you? I now ban the entire UK government. How dare you, even slightly criticize Israel's land theft.
So just a little more, Cenk. Let's take a look at this footage because I want you to see what Israel has done in Lebanon. So you're looking at the aftermath of Israeli strikes in Tyre. So 3 residential buildings, by the way, were completely demolished with many civilians trapped inside. You're looking at footage inside a hospital that was targeted as well.
As
this
usual.
is, of course, as usual. This is the Jabal Amel hospital that was wrecked. Hundreds of emergency workers, medical workers have been targeted and killed in Lebanon. At least 6 people, by the way, died in the strikes that you're looking at right now. Over 20 were wounded, and those are just the casualties we know about. I'm sure the toll will rise. The intensive care unit suffered the most damage in this hospital, and it was crowded with patients as these strikes were taking place.
Quick question, when was the last time you went to bed before midnight without your phone lighting up your face? It turns out if you've got the news cycle on a loop in your head, it's harder to fall asleep. Here's what's actually happening. The stress, the screen time, the doom scrolling spiral, it raises your core body temperature. And a body that's too warm cannot get into deep sleep. You're not just tired because the news is exhausting, you're tired because your body never actually recovered. The good news is science has a real answer, and it's simpler than you think. Your bed temperature. Enter ChiliPad 2.0 by SleepMe, the water-based mattress topper that actively controls your bed temperature from 55 to 115 degrees all night long. No new mattress, no renovation. It actively cools just using water. Fans only move hot air around. ChiliPad actually pulls heat away from your body, precise, consistent comfort, and the new nightstand remote senses when you get into bed and kicks on automatically. Dual zones mean you and your partner each set your own temperature, no subscriptions needed, you get a 2-year warranty, and they're designed and assembled in the USA. Look, I'm up late doom scrolling with the rest of you. Getting my sleep environment under control changed everything, so give it a try. Visit www.sleep.me/TYT to get up to $255 off your ChiliPad 2.0 with code TYT. That's www.sleep.me/TYT. Free shipping, free returns, and a 30-night trial so you can test it out, dream big, and wake up better. The headlines will still be there in the morning. You might as well wake up ready for them.
Something else I want to show you, this is reported by DropSite and other news organizations. An Israeli drone strike on a motorcycle in South Lebanon killed a couple and left their young child wounded and bloodied and crying beside their bodies.
So that's the kid in the yellow sitting up. And I saw the video. He's of course crying his eyes out, and he's looking at his
dead parents, his dead parents who were slaughtered by the Israelis.
And the Israelis brag all the time about how good their technology is, so they knew who they were hitting.
Oh,
That's just a family with a kid in the back, and they're like, oh yeah, let's murder the entire family. And then they'll say, and the American media, like dogs, will repeat, oh, they don't intend to hit civilians. They've just made 76,000 mistakes in Gaza, and now they've made over 3,000 mistakes in Lebanon. Golly gee, did we murder your kids? Oh, well, you're not allowed to say it. We're allowed to murder your kids, but you're not allowed to accurately report that we murdered your kids. In that case, the kids survived, his parents were dead, but that's because the terrorists tried to murder everyone. Oh, the kid was left alive. I'm surprised they didn't do a double tap, which is another Israeli specialty, because they're terrorists and it's super obvious, unless you're brainwashed by the American media that works for Israel.
And just to give you an update on the death toll since March 2nd. So March 2nd wasn't that long ago. 3,433 civilians killed, 10,395 wounded in Israeli attacks on Lebanon. Again, since March 2nd, Israel has killed over 1,000 people per month in a country smaller than the state of Connecticut. And guess what? We, the American people, are bankrolling it. We are supporting it and bankrolling it.
No, okay, guys, this is unsustainable. So look, we're now at a point where things are gonna have to give. So we've been going in a way that if we pulled out of the war with Iran, there was some chance that Israel could get their bearings back, get their feet on the ground and go back to the propaganda, back to being the victims and begin to deceive us with the American media 100% as their allies, right? Telling you there was no genocide and they're doing self-defense and all that. But now Israel has made a decision in the statement that I read you. Trump, if Axios is to be believed and Trump is to be believed, called and said, stop attacking Lebanon. Netanyahu after the call said, no, we're going to keep attacking Lebanon. There's nothing you could do about it. So that leaves us at a decision. So if we decide that to make a peace deal with Iran and cut Israel out of it because they refuse to go to peace, okay, then great. We control our own country. That's still a disaster. It's a disaster for the world to deal with, and we'll keep talking about it. But at least American sovereignty is ours, and we can get our country back in some semblance of sanity. But if because Israel said, shut up, America, you're gonna go back into the war, and we go back into the war, which is I have at about 98% chance, what's going to happen is that we're gonna get to a point where the American people are gonna say, no, that's it. And the Western citizens all across Europe, etc. We've had enough of you guys. We have eyes and ears. You can lie to us 24/7, and you do. All of our media lies to us all the time. But I saw Gaza, I see Lebanon, I see that kid crying about his dead parents. I've seen now 23,000 dead kids in Gaza. And you keep telling me that it was necessary to murder their kids. It's not necessary, and it's definitely not necessary for us to pay for this slaughterhouse that Israel is doing throughout the Middle East. So I think that there's going to be a rebellion in this country. So our politicians are the most disgustingly corrupt people on the planet. It doesn't matter. Israel can go and kill half of Lebanon, and if we don't put pressure on them, all of us as American citizens, the Republicans and the Democrats will be like, attaboy, here's $20 billion more, here's 30 billion, here's 100 billion. Keep murdering, as long as they get their legalized bribes. So this is not at all complicated. So if you're working American media, let me speak slowly so a moron like you can understand it. The Israeli lobby gives hundreds of millions of dollars to our politicians, and then our politicians give them back hundreds of billions of dollars.
They know, Cenk.
Okay.
They're in on it, they know.
So every disgusting cable news anchor, it knows these facts, and they hide it from you actively. And by the way, like they did with Anna, and like they took her off the air, they won't even allow on the air. If anyone dares to criticize Israel, you remove them from the air. No one is allowed to dispute Israeli propaganda, okay? So that's the oppression that we live under. Number one thing you should do is unplug the matrix. If you're watching television, you're purposely poisoning your mind. So talk to your older relatives, talk to people you love and care about. Get them off the crack of television. Television is meant to deceive you. Television is meant to do propaganda for a different country and to drive you into endless wars. And they said they learned their lessons after Iraq. Did they learn any lessons? No, same exact propaganda. Weapons of mass destruction, regime change, we have to do it. It doesn't have anything to do with Israel, on and on. So no, there's a rebellion afoot. And a perfect example, and I'll leave it at this, and then we'll see how the rest of the rebellion plays out. Graham Plattner. So Graham Plattner says, I don't want to do funding of Israel. The entire American national media, Republicans, and we're not going to get to it today, but and Democrats come out on cable news and go, Graham Plattner must be destroyed. Here's the real problem. And then you got Democrats arguing for Republican Susan Collins, the person they said my whole life, it's so important to defeat Susan Collins. And the minute the Democrat in the race doesn't support funding Israel, they're like, no, Susan Collins is a god. Make sure you vote for the Republican and not the Democrat, says the guys who said vote blue no matter who. They're like, unless they don't support Israel, right? So they all get bribed, legally bribed, millions of dollars. They're crooks, they're screwing you, they're betraying you to serve a different country because they got bribed to do so. And the American media is the ones who are deceiving you so that you never find out how badly corrupt your politicians are. So you need a rebellion, not a physical one, not a violent one, but a political rebellion is absolutely necessary. If we don't do it, we'll be ruled by Israel for the rest of our lives, and freedom will be gone, and all of our money will be taken to give to a bunch of fascists who murder everyone around them to steal their land. Is that what America has devolved to? And unfortunately, the answer is yes, that's where we are now. So we gotta get out of that ditch and stop supporting the terrorist government of Israel.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.